Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. And this morning it's my great pleasure to review a book by Globe Law and Business. It's got the title Accounting Procedures in Joint Operating Agreements, with the subtitle An International Perspective. And it's been written by three people, what I call the three Eduardos. Please excuse me, and excuse me also for the pronunciation. I'm not very good at it. Eduardo G. Pereira, who I have met, excellent man. Carlos Eduardo Vieira da Silva, and Eduardo Seixas. Seixas, I think that's the correct name. I do apologise in advance for getting the pronunciations wrong. We've given the title of this review the following: Implementing Financial Controls in the Energy Sector, an International Perspective. And my wife and I, Elizabeth and I, discussed this book and came up with what we thought was a suitable review title. Let me show you the book first of all. Here it is, very much in the style of Globe. There's the actual front. I've turned it on its side, the front cover there. Then you've got the spine, and then you've got the detail on the back. And as I said, it's an international perspective from Globe. The book is not a big one, it's a hardback, you can hear that. And it runs to about 300, just over 300 pages, and there are some appendices at the back. One of the things with Globe is they don't actually publish an index at the back, so you haven't got any form of real index. They do sort of publish some of their own earlier books in the at the back as well. There's the front page again. It's on its side there, but you get the general drift. The table of contents is set out very neatly. Hopefully you can see those. I've been asked to show them a little longer so you can see them. Then you've got a preface. There are in fact a total of 5 chapters and some appendices, and then you've got the preface which has been written by the first Eduardo Pereira, who's a very knowledgeable fellow and absolutely enthusiastic over what is a very important subject, in fact. Now you can see the structure of the chapters. Here, there's chapter 1, paragraph numbering, and you've got useful footnoting at the sides. And again, if you just open it in the middle, exactly the same thing you can see all the way through. And there are some very useful suggestions about how you approach these procedures. So it's difficult for me to really say exactly who this market would appeal to in terms of the book, but certainly it's for admin, advisors and people certainly in the energy industry as a whole, gas and oil. But the joint operating agreements themselves are quite complex, and I think the aim of what the Eduardos are doing is to give you some indication of the sorts of appropriate accounting procedures in what can be very technical quite quickly. And of course it's international, not national, so therefore we've got something which will appeal much more to the global market. Anyway, this is what we say about the book. When vast sums of money are required to finance huge capital projects, particularly in the oil and gas industries, few companies can undertake such investment alone, especially with the high level of risk involved. What almost inevitably emerges here is the phenomenon of the joint venture in which 2 or several companies, and often governments of course, combine efforts and resources to complete a project successfully. We are talking quite often of a very large amount of money, of course. As it explains with commendable clarity in this new title from Globe Law and Business, financial controls must obviously be implemented ideally through the mechanism of the Joint Operating Agreement, the JOI, accompanied by agreed accounting procedures. These are usually set out in an attachment aimed at specifying the financial controls that are in place and the means by which agreed accounting procedures are exercised. The overall aim is to control the expenditure of the consortium, which in the case of big projects carried out over long periods can easily get out of hand, as many governments know to their cost. So you can see the basic principle involved. So it is a primarily a book about accountancy, law and business all sort of coming together. The text of the book commences with a detailed examination of the basic principles and specifics relating to the accounting procedures necessary for joint ventures. That's from cash calls and statements to adjustments, audits and allocations. Chapters 2 and 3, respectively, deal with chargeable costs and expenses and the variety of problems that can conceivably occur between the various parties in a joint venture. Chapter 4 goes on to offer advice on handling contractual disputes, again very interesting from the legal perspective, and the final chapter, chapter 5, deals with the problems of host government contracts, national oil companies and investors, and dispute resolution, our old favourite. So again, there's a nice mix there of both accountancy, law and business. So I'd like to say thanks to the research and analysis undertaken by these three expert co-authors, because I think the book manages to be information rich yet succinct, and dare we say it, both brisk and businesslike, which is what you would expect. And I think they've really actually proved a very successful title here. The extensive footnoting is also helpful, and it's an impressive research tool in itself. And I think it's important to note the valuable addition of the two appendices at the back, which include key model forms, which I'm sure will be helpful again on the business side of the interest which this book gives. We will attempt, say the authors, to provide an understanding of the operations and procedures listed in the accounting procedures from the perspectives of operators and non-operators alike. Information they add which is not provided in most of the literature in the field. So they're basically plugging a bit of a gap in terms of the JOI themselves by producing this procedures book, which I think will be extremely helpful. For all those professionally involved then in the energy industry, specifically in oil companies, whether national, international, or independent, this book brings together in one volume the need-to-know information and insights that previously have been difficult to source or access. And in this respect, as well as others, this useful work of reference is a real time saver, and that's obviously one of the purposes behind producing it. Let me conclude by saying we think international lawyers in particular, as well as accountants or indeed anybody involved in contractual issues or dispute handling within the upstream sector, will find this book indispensable. It's certainly a hands-on book to a certain extent. It's well written and it gets to the point quickly. So thank you to the three Eduardos. The publication date is cited at 2016. Let me just show you the book again. There's the front page, brown cover, the front page like that. Then you've got the spine, and then you have the back. And there's some blurb on the back which sets out, in their own words, what the book is all about. And as I've said to you, the important thing is always to read the preface, which sets out exactly what Eduardo Pereira is trying to do. He says the joint operating agreement is probably one of the most relevant agreements in the upstream sector, and that's one of the reasons why, for admin purposes, business purposes, as well as legal, contractual and accountancy purposes, this is an excellent book. Thank you very much also to Sean at Globe Law, Sean O'Neill, very much for taking the lead in producing this book, which is another excellent, very high quality work from Globe Law and Business. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.